Hello, my name is Michael Tillotson, and I am the author of these two precious little baby books right here. Well, not baby books. I meant that as a term of endearment, not what age demographic these books are meant for. Heart of the World has swears in it. Don't read it to your babies. There are a few ways you could describe what writing is all about. You could say it's about the suspension of disbelief, making your audience feel like the world you crafted is real. The other big thing I would say writing is about is making your audience care about your characters. And the best way to do that is to make your characters feel fleshed out, like real, complicated people, not simple archetypes. There's no way to really tell you how to do that in any sort of reasonable time frame. At least not one that I could make a video out of. There are so many things I could talk about in that regard that I could make that the entire point of this channel, just how to make characters feel fleshed out, parts 1 through 9,999. When someone asked me about this question, though, the first thing that came to mind is establishing the character's core. So what do I mean by the core? Well, for as much as writing is about trying to convince your audience otherwise, the ultimate fact is that the characters in our stories aren't real. Like, I'm never going to go walking down the streets one day and bump into Miriam from Heart of the World, which is probably a good thing because she'd most likely break my arm. And not being real, the characters that we write almost always represent something, Every character, no matter how deep and complex, does kind of ultimately stem from an archetype, and they have a role in the story that means something. And this isn't necessarily true for real life. Like, I most likely do not have a role in the grander scheme of life. And sure, we have background characters, but when someone's asking, how do I make my characters fleshed out? They're not asking about that one construction worker whose entire purpose in the story is running away from the monster and then they're never seen or heard from again. The core of a character basically boils down to the simple question of what does this character mean? To the story, to the morals, to the theme. Who and what are they in the context of the story? The main character of my book, The Heart of the World, is Iphos. And Iphos was always meant to represent this sort of goodness and light, because a big theme in The Heart of the World is this question of whether Iphos' light and goodness can persist, even in a world that's constantly trying to snuff it out. He's surrounded by darkness on all sides, and there's this question of whether or not that darkness will consume him. If you really look at any character in a story, you'll find that almost all of them have this kind of meaning to them. No character is created by accident, like, oh no, I accidentally wrote this mad scientist who's trying to destroy the world, what do we do now? That's not really how this works. Sometimes these characters do pop into our heads fully fleshed out and realized, but when we take that person and fit them into the story, we're writing them into a narrative with intent. We don't accidentally drop them in and then forget to take them out. If you can discover what the core of any given character is, then you should be able to figure out from there how they would react in any given situation. If the whole point of a character is that they're a shiny beacon of light and a force of goodness, pure of heart and all that, then you can be reasonably certain when writing them that most of the time they'll do whatever the author sees as the right thing, and in any given situation. And if they don't, if suddenly they do what seems to be the wrong thing, then the audience knows that there is something very, very wrong happening. This is a very meta way of looking at things, granted. This way of looking at things is essentially looking at your story like a game board where all the characters are your pieces, and you're basically trying to figure out what every piece does and how it moves. But the important thing to remember about that is you're not playing chess. You can break the rules, and breaking the rules is actually very important. Nobody's perfect, and nobody ever 100% adheres to their morals and values. Everyone falters, whether that's due to peer pressure or extreme circumstances or pity or empathy or whatever. And on top of that, the rules can change. If the core of a character is that they're undergoing a redemption arc, then how their piece moves near the beginning of the book is going to be very different from how it moves at the end. And furthermore, it's worth remembering that the rules of any given piece can be affected by the rules of the pieces around them. Someone could be very nonchalant and laid back and lazy in most circumstances, but maybe there's someone they really, really care about, and when that person is involved, they're a lot more proactive and they put in a lot more effort. This kind of topic was hard to talk about in any great amount of depth, because it's such a broad topic, but breaking a character down to their core like this has always helped me figure out where their role in the story is, and from there how they would act in any given situation. But that's all I got for now. Hopefully this was at least a little bit helpful, and I'll see you in another video.